Hey guys, I'm Ulf from HoboRec. Today we're in LA visiting Trey Xavier in his headquarters, and we're going to talk about the most important tool to use in the recording studio.
Number one.
Hi Trey.
What's
How
up,
you
dude?
doing?
I'm great. I am exhausted from NAMM,
Same,
but also like fulfilled and just nice,
Filled with Nam.
full of NAMM. Yeah, you've heard of full of hell.
Yeah, I'm filled and fried. So
Yeah, so this is kind of like gonna be maybe more chill than we intended,
yeah,
but I had a great time, and as always, it's nice to see you because
thank
like
you.
when else am I gonna see you?
Yeah,
Unless I go to Sweden.
yeah, that happens sometimes. So
It does, and hopefully more. I'd like
yeah.
to come back.
And anyways, thank you so much for having me here.
You're very
And
welcome.
we're going to talk a little bit about some important stuff that a lot of people recording, what do you call it in English? Neglect it a little bit?
Oh yeah, neglect.
Neglect. Thanks for the English.
You're welcome. Did you mean tak?
Tack. Yeah, exactly.
That's the one Swedish word that I know. So
So, what is it? What are we going to talk about?
it's your video. You tell me. Songwriting.
Songwriting, yeah.
It's songwriting. People talk about studio prep, all the different things you need to have together before you hit the studio, before you spend a ton of money when you get there, and very rarely is it spoken about making sure that your songs are good enough to justify spending any of that money at all. And it feels like it needs to be addressed a bit more, in my opinion.
Especially this, there are so many, like, especially YouTube channels focusing on gear. And I mean, I'm guilty of it myself. I'm really interested in gear. I think it's super fun experimenting with the recording side of it.
Yeah.
But sitting in the chair that I do, working with the bands, it's really frustrating to get the bands that have, as you said, not prepared, haven't really finished the songs finish the songs, but are they really songs? Or the riff salad, as you
Or
said.
the riff salad, or are they any good? Like, first of all, are they done? Second of all, are they songs? Third of all, are they any good? And no one could possibly be more guilty of the gear obsession than the channel that was formerly known as Gear Gods, which is mine. In my mind, the number one thing that needs to be prepared before you get there, because recording is not only expensive and time consuming, it's so hard. It's so hard. There's so much pressure. There's a time limit, if you're going to a studio to record. So, like, if your songs aren't the best that they can be, it feels like a waste of all of that and the wear and tear on your spirit as a person. So, like, you want to go in knowing that you've got songs that are just going to absolutely destroy, so that the production isn't putting lipstick on a pig. You're not just like getting the greatest kick drum sound that nobody's going to hear because the songs aren't great.
What does it say? You can't polish a turd, but you can roll it in glitter. Spray or gold spray it.
I have not heard that, but that's great.
But
you just don't want it to be any version of that.
Exactly. A question I have, I mean, I know how you can learn how to write songs. I mean, you have great courses on it. Will be links. But how would you suggest a band analyzes the situation?
Mm-hmm.
How do a band know if they wrote a good song or not?
The very first thing, in my opinion, that you should be doing is demoing your songs out in some sense. A lot of bands are writing songs together in the rehearsal space, which is a way that was always very difficult for me, especially not having the best memory. Maybe I'm like, you write something that's awesome and then you're like, wait, what did I just do? But also, you're always experiencing the song start to finish in this like very linear fashion when you're playing it all together and working on it together. And when you do even just a very basic recording of it, of any kind, and hear it, like have it start to finish in front of you on the computer or in whatever way, it's a lot easier to see it from like the bird's eye view. And I feel like there's a lot, especially in metal, more so in metal than anything else. Amateur bands are not taking the bird's eye view of the complete song structure. And I've seen this in everything from very local bands to most recently, literally Metallica.
I haven't listened to it yet. I read tons about it, but
I mean, like, people have got varying opinions, of course. I thought it was so bloated. Every part of it was just real amateur local band style arrangements and structures that, I don't know. Like, I think the way that they write them is all together in the studio for the most part. They're not really doing pre-pro demos and stuff. Now, that's not necessarily going to fix any problems, but I think if you're only playing them through and experiencing them in the moment as you're playing it, it's going to be real hard to get any kind of perspective on it.
So a follow-up question on what you just talked about. You said about having the bird's eye view. Practically, how would you do that?
I use a lot of basic tools in my DAW, which is unfortunately Pro Tools. Any kind of drum software, like I use ELE from Spectre Digital. I use Easy Drummer, whatever. And then just like your very basic run-of-the-mill amp sim kinds of stuff. Or if you want to record like some real drums, record your rehearsal or whatever just to hear it, then all you really need is like a microphone, like any kind of microphone, like a stereo.
So you're basically putting down a recording of the song and then like listen to it, or how do you think, should they like analyze the structure of it in some way? Or
yes, and I find that that's easiest to do inside of a DAW because you can, in every major DAW, you can have markers to put, like, for example, like intro riff, verse, chorus, verse, that kind of thing. The number one biggest problem that I see is these intros that just go and go and go. It's like intro riff 1, intro riff 2, intro riff 3. And also just through composing the whole thing. So the song structure is A, B, C, D, E, F, G, etc. I think that that's bad storytelling. I think that's a bad vehicle for storytelling. But if you've never written a song before, or you've never tried to study songwriting in any sense, even a very casual analysis of music that you like, not like at a university or taking any kinds of songwriting classes or composition or anything, just listening to to songs and taking a structural analysis, then it's possible that that's the only thing that makes sense to you, is tacking all the recent riffs that you've written together in a row. I've got a big long rant about why that through composing is bad songwriting. I will spare you, but suffice it to say, it to me is just a terrible vehicle for storytelling, because it's like introducing a new character to every scene in a movie, and we never find out what happens to any of them or why they were there.
That's a really good analogy.
Thank you. I came up with it because I didn't to cut the rant down to one sentence. And I think it's possible to have good through composed music where you are telling the story very well, but it is incredibly difficult. And repetition is what, in my mind, makes for really, truly great songwriting and storytelling. So this is something to watch out for. But actually what you, I think, need to be doing is just paying attention to the overall journey of the song, the story that you're telling the audience, that you're bringing them through start to finish. Are they getting a payoff, or are you just subjecting them to things that you think are cool? Is it just part transition, part transition, part transition? If it is, I think you got to really consider whether or not what you're doing is self-indulgent and dumb. You might have amazing parts. Your band might be great. I hear this all the time. Bands that are like super sick, they have a great sound. It's really unique. And then the songs just kind of drag on and like don't do anything for me. And I'm like, well, that sucks. You put that much work into making something so awesome and then like handed in this mess.
One thing that I tried, I just want to pick your brain if you think this is a good idea. When I feel I get stuck in arrangement, just pick a song that I know that I like a lot, that I haven't already analyzed, and put it in the DAW, as I said, put up those markers, see which part is which, and then I write a song using that arrangement as like a color book.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Even if it doesn't turn out great or whatever, it's an excellent study, because to me it's micro and macro views of the song and of the music making process, right? In metal and heavier genres, whatever, there's a micro focus on the elements of the things. You hear people talk about like, oh, I like this band, they're super heavy, they shred, they're fast, it's like these little elements, instead of like, oh, I love this song, when it hits 3/4 of the way through, there's this amazing crescendo and a release, and it everything from the beginning to that part makes perfect sense, that was leading to that. And then they hit you with it, and then the ride out to the end is just cathartic and glorious, you know? And the lyrics tell a story and all this. That to me is the thing that's missing in this, you know, in these sounds that I love. Okay, I listen to heavy music because I love the sound, the power of it. Yeah. The focus to me is sort of on the wrong things, even though without that, it wouldn't have the sound, the power. But I think for someone in the band or the producer to take this bird's eye view. So like what I was saying earlier, in terms of having like a demo or pre-pro version of the song, even though, you know, you might think that like programming drums is lame or whatever, it doesn't have to have the feel of what the final product is actually going to have. Maybe you're not even going to record to a click or whatever, but hearing this like version of it where everything is really clear and obvious, and that you can show to other people and ask about the larger structure, and you can go in and change it, cut parts out and move stuff around and experiment with far more easily than what you can do in the rehearsal room or whatever. And
so like a musical Lego.
Yeah. That has ups and downs. Sometimes playing through it all together, it'll feel right or wrong, that maybe wouldn't work in the DAW. But at the same time, if you're not doing at least the pre-pro version, it's easy to get in trouble. You can also try it out in front of a live audience and see if it works, see if people are
What do you think? Up. What do you think? It's okay?
Did you guys like that one or no? Should we cut the intro? To me, the first thing that you should start doing is cutting easily. Far more bloat in smaller band metal songs than the opposite, you know? There are a lot of songs that are too damn short. Like, you did something awesome and their song wasn't long enough to bring it back.
But that's like a luxury problem, because you can always listen to the song again.
That's the caveat to through composed things, because you can go back and listen to it again, and then you've got a song structure that repeats. You found the loophole, bro.
I don't need to write songs. I'm out.
Peace. But a lot of bands just need a producer who can identify these kinds of things and be chopping and all this stuff. It's hard to see it in your own songs. You have to be so honest with yourself when you are looking at what you think maybe is a final product, a final structure or whatever. Like, don't trust yourself that much. Be ultra honest with yourself and your bandmates, and like, do these parts need to be in there? Does this add anything other than length? The experiment that you proposed to me is a great way to start, because if it's a song that you really love, there are things in there, elements and specific sounds and stuff, that probably hooked you. But the journey, the song structure, is a hugely overlooked part of that. and it is incredibly important. And that's what I find missing in all the heavy genres across the board, especially in like smaller bands.
Just to make to go back to another analogy that you did before with storytelling. I mean, there are hundreds of movies that have the exact same structure and the basic story, but just different characters and different.
Yeah, the arc, the story arc, the same like general idea, like how The Lion King is Macbeth, and then like Oh Brother Where Art Thou is based on the Odyssey, but then also just movies that are completely unrelated to each other that just have, like you're saying, basically the same plot, same general elements, all of that, and you probably didn't even notice.
No, because I mean, yeah, as you wouldn't with if you write a totally different song over the same arrangement. If the riffs or melodies or vocal lines or whatever is different, you're not gonna immediately think that that's the same song.
There's almost no reason that you would, unless you were to analyze it that way.
Yeah.
I think that's a great way to try to do it. A great thing to try out.
At least to start learning about structuring songs, if you don't have an experience with it before.
I don't want people to think that this means that I think that the only valid structure is about verse, chorus, verse, bridge, etc., like the pop song structure or whatever. It's just about actually considering that you're taking your listener on a journey that is worthwhile. And I've written tons of songs with very unusual song structures that I think still did that, still achieved that. As long as you're considering that and not just cramming together riffs that you've written in a nonsensical sequence because you don't know any other way or whatever. As long as you're giving the listener a worthwhile payoff, which to me is about repeating things in a certain way, playing with the listener's expectations, and giving yourself something as the first audience. You're always your own first audience. Giving yourself the same kind of chills that you want the listener to have, then it's hard to go wrong. But I will say that more often than not, stuff that I get sent, and I'm listening to between like 50 and 70 like local band amateur compositions a week.
With your competition and song critiques and stuff.
Between the songwriting contest that I've got that's ongoing on my channel, and every Friday I'm doing live stream songwriting critiques. What I hear far, far more often than anything else is this just through composed A, B, C, D, E, F, G thing, and it doesn't work. That's the main thing. Like, if I heard something like that and I got to the end and I was like, oh my God, that was an amazing experience, I really felt it, and you delivered the goods, that has never happened.
Yeah. I mean, I think, just to go a little bit on a tangent, I think that song structure, from what I understand, is more usual in like old school techno stuff, where you like start and you just build up to a certain crescendo.
Yeah.
But I still think you need to have, as you said, it needs to make sense, and you need to know why you're getting from one part to the next part.
Yeah. And even in that kind of environment, the journey is still the most important thing. And the repetition is usually that it's one very simple idea that's repeating like basically on a loop. And then the dynamics are the journey, like Sandstorm is pretty repetitive. But when it hits, when it finally drops, you're going to throw your hands in the air and like lose your mind. Even though the part is basically one thing. Dynamics are incredibly important. That's a big topic. I don't know how much time you got, but that's one part of delivering a solid journey to your listener, even if it's a shorter one, even if it's a very short song, whether it's short or long or whatever. If you're not considering that, it is going to be very, very easy for someone to tune out. Even if you're like, I don't care what anybody else thinks, I'm doing this for me. You should do it for you. because you're a listener of music and an enjoyer of, and you are once again your first audience all the time. Ask yourself if you're actually happy with it, or you just are sick of working on it and you decided to stop.
Don't use "I'm doing it for me" as an excuse to not actually put in the work.
Yeah. And that feels like an easy excuse to get out of putting into it what it needs to be done. And the reason that you're going to do this is because once you actually get to the point where it's time to go to the studio or whatever, you want to know that you did everything you could to make this song the best that it could possibly be, so that the hours of work and lack of sleep, the money that you're going to spend, all of that stuff is going to be worth it, and it's going to be just getting over the barrier of making something that is already great sound as great as it could be, as it needs to be, for the listener to understand what you're trying to get across, and they'll actually take that journey, and not just go like, oh cool, this sounds really good, wow, listen to that snare tone. Like, if you're only worried about that stuff, then don't write songs, just make snare demos.
Yeah.
Which could be cool,
Yeah.
but it's not songwriting.
A snare album.
The snare album. That's everything that I had to say about it.
It starts to feel like something religious, in a positive way. It's not. It's a movement. It's a movement,
dude. I am for sure a man on a mission. I have an agenda to improve metal songwriting because I love metal so much, and we are getting our asses handed to us left and right by every other genre because they care about this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like all metal cares about is riffs, and everything else is an afterthought, and that sucks. Because there's no reason you can't have incredibly sick riffs and really, really well-written, crafted songs. I can think of no reason, because I know that there are lots of bands who do it.
Yeah.
Because if they didn't, I wouldn't listen to any metal. I would only be listening to, I don't know. I don't even know what. Pop.
What would you
probably
listen to?
I mean, I listen to a lot of pop, jazz, like 90s R&B, like whatever.
But they know how to write songs.
And they have no riffs at all. Why can't we have both?
What an ending. So anyways, songwriting, super important. And you need to check out Trey's channel, which I suppose most people have seen my channel, have already seen his channel, but you still need to learn more about music writing. And I guess you learn a lot from just watching your YouTube. And if you want to go even deeper, you have the courses.
Yeah. Which you'll have a link to in the description below.
Nice. And
so you won't even have to go all the way to my channel, but
I didn't have to fly all the way to Los Angeles to.
You didn't have to, but I appreciate that you did. Because here we are, and this is great fun, and it's always great to see you.
Nice. Thank you so much.
Thank you.